Good morning, everyone. Let's try that again. A few people were with me. Good morning, everybody. Wow, that is an amazing difference. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I hope you're enjoying the conference. I hope you're finding it fun and stimulating and engaging. I know we're happy to be here to have a conversation, hopefully lead a conversation about bringing the joy back into education. The reason we're excited to do that is because it's an important time in education. A lot of people thinking about what education should be, what productive lessons look like, what are the fundamentals of learning, what are the parts of teaching that are really important. And we think part of that is finding lessons that can be engaging and meaningful for students, and that doesn't just impart skills, but hopefully ignites a lifelong passion for learning. And so this is going to be an informal conversation with some really great experts. I want to remind everybody we're going to have a Q&A at the end, so if you have questions, you can submit them through the app. We'll see them up here and take as many as we can get to. And we've also put together, I think we're ready for that, a brief intro video, which will highlight some of the topics that we're going to be discussing today. And then after the video, we will introduce the panelists and get started. Thank you again for being here.
If there ever was a time to rethink learning, now is the time.
Now is a time for us to be able to give back to our students.
Our students deserve to have authentic hands-on learning experiences.
Now is the time to be bringing joy back to learning.
Students have to connect with what they're learning, and through joy, they'll have meaningful experiences that will stay with them.
When we can tie what they're learning to the real world, that has a lot of power.
Build to Launch was very appealing because it has multiple levels of learning.
It felt like we were thrown into the NASA program for a week.
It gave us a chance to actually know how it is like to program robots.
They need to be able to connect themselves to these fields, and I felt Build to Launch did a fantastic job with it.
If they feel joy, they are intrinsically motivated. They are feeling more confident in themselves.
Great educators are always trying to figure out how to keep their students engaged and what we can do differently.
It definitely does not feel like school, but we are definitely learning.
If we want students to be problem solvers, we need to give them the opportunity to problem solve.
Some of their most learning came from failure.
In science, there is trial and error, and you need to find out what's wrong and fix it.
That's where the learning is, when they're willing to look at their work, find the flaw, and try again.
You're going to fail, but it doesn't matter as long as you come back.
It gave them an example, a real person saying, you can do what I did.
It inspired me to be a mechanical engineer for NASA.
I feel like anyone can join STEAM.
I do want to go to the moon, and I do want to go into space.
As a teacher, I feel so lucky. It takes one teacher at a time.
You feel like you can do anything.
Thank you, that was great. And before we get to introducing the panelists, I just want to mention also that if you are on Twitter and would like to share anything from the panel, or maybe suggest questions for us, we're using the hashtag #JoyInLearning, which ought to be real complicated given the title of the panel. Thank you again. And also, before we do the introductions, I'll do myself first. I'm easy, short. My name is Derek Newton. I'm an education writer and a contributing writer at Forbes on education, and I've had the real privilege of covering a lot of these topics and writing about them for a while now. So other than that, my job is to make sure we end on time and stay out of the way. And so I'll start with the introductions. Immediately to my right is Joanna Mulholland. She is a teacher at Berkeley Township School District. And Joanna?
Good morning. So first, I'm thrilled to be here and see so many people here to hear about the joy of learning. I teach 6th grade in an elementary school model, so all content areas for 7 years. I previously taught a year of kindergarten, and my major in college was early childhood. So in early childhood, you see the joy every day. They come with it, right? So I'm here to talk about how I've brought the joy into my 6th grade classroom previous to COVID, and now every day trying to just get those guys back.
Thank you very much. And next to her is Rob LaSalvia. He has the coolest title I've ever heard in my life. He is Strategic Partnership Manager at the Office of STEM Engagement at NASA.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Really happy to be here today. Really excited to talk about not just the joy of learning today, but to have discussions at the conference on very important topics in education. So what I'm responsible for is we develop collaborations that benefit students and teachers. We realize that as we think about our future workforce and the pathways that we need to create for students to find success, it's absolutely critical that we partner, we engage with others who share our vision and our values. And so in this particular relationship, we're really thinking about how we spark that curiosity and that engagement that will hopefully help put a student on a pathway to either maybe pursuing a STEM career or at least being more scientifically literate in their day-to-day lives.
Thank you, Rob. And Rob had the coolest title that I'd ever heard until I saw our next panelist. She's Dr. Jenny Nash. Her title is Head of Education Impact for Lego Education, which is pretty awesome.
It is pretty awesome because we get to think about joyful learning and hands-on playful learning every day. So I'm so excited to be here to share with you today and hear these wonderful stories and just think about the opportunities we have in our classrooms to be joyful and be playful. So I've been a teacher for almost 20 years and I get to work with districts now and teachers to think about what are the ways that we can really engage our students and bring the fun back to learning.
Thank you, all three of you. And I'm just, for simplicity, mostly for me, I'm just going to use everybody's first name except for Dr. Jenny because I've noticed everybody calls her Dr. Jenny. So for the next 53 minutes, she will be Dr. Jenny. Our first, well, and probably after that because people call you that. So
I love it. I'll own it.
Yep. Then we're good. I'm glad that works. Our first question, just to get the conversation started, we're going to start with you. I'm sorry you picked the hot seat. In your opinion, why is now an important time to rethink about what learning is and what we're doing?
Well, as educators before the pandemic, we always reassess how we were reaching learners and how are we going to do the same lesson next year, tweak it to make it better. We did that before. And coming out of COVID with screen to screen and students using these coping skills when they turn the camera off, they walk away, they mark it done. It's not done. Am I done yet? And now they're back in the classroom and we're asking them to collaborate and share their ideas. I had students, we would put them in Google Meet, what were they called? Yeah, breakout rooms. Stephen won't talk. Some of them are camera shy, and they went through that for 1.5 years. And last year, we were hybrid, and I don't even know all the different models we went through every 3 weeks. So now they're back, and they have to speak with each other. And with that comes confidence building. They're just not confident. And then we are labeling it apathy a lot of times, and that's there. But if we want them to experience success so that they're more willing to seek out STEM in middle school and high school so that they have these confidence building experiences, and then they'll be more willing to seek out university education. If they don't have success in a lab because they didn't have to take biology in high school, that student's not going to seek it out later. So really, I want them to smile and realize that there isn't just one right answer or one way to get to it, and be willing to share their point of view and want to come back the next day. So that way, next year, their confidence is built, they're more motivated, and they're going to try something that maybe they weren't willing to try before.
Thank you very much. I took note of the smile note, so I will try to do that a little more. Rob, same question to you. Why is now the crucial time to be thinking about these topics and having these conversations?
Yeah, when we consider the current STEM workforce, folks working in STEM fields, we're living in a time where the work that we perform is becoming increasingly complex. And so it doesn't just require a scientist or an engineer or a technician to solve a problem, but we really need to work at the intersection of multiple disciplines. Whether we're thinking about how we solve the critical problems of climate change or how we continue to pursue our goals of eventually putting people on the surface of Mars, we really need teams of interdisciplinary folks working together. So to break down those traditional silos and to really get kids thinking about how to problem solve in an environment where there really is no clear solution, no right or wrong answer. And then when we layer that on top of the fact that whole segments of students aren't necessarily pursuing these STEM careers. We're missing out on incredible talent in this country and globally. It's just the time is ripe to think about how and where we engage and how we really ramp up the student interest, the student motivation, the identity in STEM. I mean, these are all just critical topics.
Thank you also. Dr. Jenny, new question. How do teachers do that? How do they bring those lessons into the classroom?
I mean, it's so easy, right? I think we all know that it's hard work, and we've all been talking about, especially this week, the moment that we're in education and this opportunity that we have to rethink learning, that we need to redefine what normal is again. And I think that these are the conversations that can drive us forward faster, and realizing that in this moment, there are so many opportunities to take forward. And when I talk to a lot of teachers and administrators, what they're constantly saying is, yes, we need to think about the learning. Yes, we need to think about the skills, but I just want to get my students engaged. I just want to get them collaborating again. I want to get them back together and learning in these environments. And oh, by the way, can we make it fun? And I think that sometimes we think we can't make it fun. But what we have to stop and think about is, how do we do that in a really purposeful and a really intentional way? How do we think about that student engagement through the lens of, yes, we're bringing in the standards, we're applying the knowledge, we're utilizing the skills, and build something that really works. And that's how we came together and partnered together with NASA and built the Build to Launch series. So this is a free 10-week learning series that we created to do just those things. We wanted it to be really meaningful for our students and really inspiring through the Artemis 1 launch and what could happen. But at the same time, it's not just about the rocket that's launching or the astronauts that are going up. We focused on all the other careers at NASA that are leading into that. What is the work that's happening now to prepare for that? And that's where we focused our energies. So they're learning about people at NASA. They're learning about careers that they might not otherwise hear about, and actually problem solving along with those NASA folks. What are the problems that we have to think about? How do we solve them? And then we created the learning series to be very open-ended, to allow that kind of playful interaction with ideas and meaningful failure and iteration, and all of those ways that learning can be very meaningful, but in a very fun and engaging way that students just love. And going into Joanna's classroom, I mean, just incredible to see what the students are able to do when they're given that opportunity to kind of take the learning into their own hands and find the meaning within it.
Thank you. Focusing a little bit more on the fun part, the joy, the topic of the panel. Rob, how do teachers, from where you sit and what you see, how do teachers bring that joy into the classroom? Is there a trick to it? Advice? What do you have to say about that?
So what we try to contribute in partnerships and relationships is that we have this real world mission context, this engaging mission context where every day we're trying to sort of push the boundaries of science and engineering. And so Dr. Jenny mentioned Artemis 1, and I have to just for a second talk about Artemis 1. So we're getting ready to start a series of 3 missions to return to the moon. So the first mission it's called Artemis 1, and it's gonna launch in the next few months, and it's gonna be uncrewed. It's going to test the technology, the capsule, the launch systems. And then following on that, about a year later, we'll do Artemis 2, which will be a crewed orbit around the moon. And then finally Artemis 3, where we return to the surface of the moon and have sort of a sustained presence. We also plan to put the first woman and the first person of color on the surface of the moon. So we're just very excited about these plans in the coming years. And so we really feel like there's an incredible opportunity to tell the story to students, to motivate students, to let them know that truly anything is possible. And so through this relationship and discussion with LEGO, we arrived at this project. But for us, I feel like we observe where our relationships and partnerships are best, and where students seem to have the strongest engagement is really, take it out of the textbook, take it off the computer if you can, but just think about that real world where you're building something that has a practical application, or at least is connected to a practical application. So those are the things that I think we'd like to think through and talk about together.
Yeah, and I think I'll just add on really quickly. I mean, that hands-on piece is so important. I mean, just letting kids tinker and feel it and try it and fail fast and learn from that failure and iterate. And I think that's such a great thing that we've been able to build from this partnership.
Joanna, how does joy get in your classroom?
Okay, ready? Okay. Okay, so if you are an educator and you aren't on Instagram, you've got to get on Instagram. I know a few years ago, and if you're a Twitter follower, I didn't feel it. I love the pictures on Instagram, and it just draws me in. I'm not so great at it. I'm trying to be better. I learned about the Build to Launch series in about July of last year, and you do not have to use Lego bricks. You can use anything you want. But I was thinking, well, I have 6th graders. They want to use Legos, right? And I understood they were going to be releasing mission videos with real STEM professionals that are going to talk to my students. And I have to teach force and motion. So force and motion, that's tough, right? It's better if they can touch it. So I saw a teacher that I follow on Instagram talking about it, and text my principal, can I please? And he said no. And so then, right. So then I went on and I tried to explore the own network that I already have. My friends, I was driving to friends' houses all summer picking up Lego bricks from their attic. I spent a week in Aruba on a Goodwill auction and got 53 pounds of Legos for $150, right? So, so they're out there, and there is a recycling program, but a lot of people that you already know want them to be recycled out of their attic to you. And then you wash them and put them all over your house on beach towels. Okay. All right. So I brought those into my room, and I basically have a wall of shelving of Legos that I collected. And my students walked in this year, and they were like, that's the first thing they notice. It's right there in their face. They want to know, what are we going to do? So that right there grabs their attention. And I know that if I'm excited, which I can't really hide it a lot of the times, that I'm going to be able to deliver the joy to them. And they just want to touch them. They just want to experience them. I had one student out of 22 that had never built before. And once you find that, management issues go out the window. Their conversations are on topic. And like I said, you don't have to have Lego bricks to do any of this. You could use paper towel rolls, do a makerspace challenge. Just be brave and give them materials and see what happens. I've been giving my students Play-Doh for the first day of school for years because, let's introduce ourselves, and then, because they're very shy. We're very shy. Instead of that, talk about symbolism a little bit, 6th grade. Show us something out of Play-Doh that symbolizes you. Write a sentence, and then we do a collaborative slide deck. And then it's fun because then they can meet each other, and it's perfect for back to school night. But that's the first thing they say. What's the favorite thing we did so far for back to school night? Play-Doh. They remember that. They're 6th graders. And they keep it in their desk all year. I've never once in 4 years I've been doing it had to take it away because they weren't handling it right. It's a great brain break. So all these little things that you already have, just go find them, find your joy, and then it just gets delivered right to them.
Just a personal moderator note. When a panelist slides forward and says, "Okay, are you ready?" I'm winning. That was a win for me. Thank you so much. I think we all agree that play does belong in a classroom, that it's an important part of teaching and learning, or at least it should be. But I want to spend just a minute and hear from a couple of you about why that is. If you can, from your perspective, why is it important that play be a part of a formal learning process? We'll start with you, Dr. Jenny.
I think we just saw why it's so important. I mean, even when the teacher's excited about it, I think the students feed off of that. But I think play is so important in classrooms. I mean, what's more natural in learning than play? When you're playful, you're curious. You try ideas, you tinker, you think, you see what works and what doesn't, and you figure out how things work. And, again, you fail and it's okay because you move forward. Play it's iterative, it's engaging. You can be socially engaged through it. You're actively learning, and usually it's very meaningful or you wouldn't keep playing, and it's joyful, of course. And I think that's the magic that we can really capture for our students if we let them have that playful moment. And I think in classrooms, what really happens is we want to be very purposeful about the play. There's a reason to be playing. There are things we're learning specifically about the play. We guide that play sometimes a little bit to make sure that students are using the knowledge, practicing the skills, and it's not just fun for the sake of fun. It's very purposeful. So when I talk about, classrooms, I think about it being purposeful play and how that can bring joy out in our students. And I think with Build to Launch, a great example in those learning series, We didn't just tell students about what the challenge was and what we wanted them to do. They heard from NASA. We had the Lego Space Team minifigures telling them about it. So we made it very engaging and fun and just exciting for the students. But they were really doing that hard work once they got into those challenges. They had to do a lot of research. They had to think through how it could work. They really had to iterate. So the work happened, the learning happened, but it happened in that really playful way. And I think some of your examples are so great for various ages, but play can happen at any age. It may be more of a project-based learning unit versus, something that's, play and with Play-Doh or things like that. But there's no reason that at different ages and stages you can't have great playful experiences. And it can be something quick, a 5-minute something. It could be something that takes weeks and months that's very involved. I think that play can take a lot of forms in our classrooms.
And really, we should talk about the social emotional piece of this. The kids don't want to be wrong, right? And it's not a sign of weakness that you're wrong. So we all have heard for years, call out your misunderstandings, the mistakes that we make, and it is so important. And when they are reaching a goal, so one of the missions was to build a rover that would then be driven by a remote, and we saw an engineer who drives a rover on Mars, Perseverance, that just landed last February, and they're just, 90% of them are a gag. They're like, this is a job? I thought I wanted to be a gamer, but maybe I'll be an engineer now. I mean, you hear these things, and they're not telling me, they're telling their friends. So when there isn't just one way to solve it, we didn't have kits and stuff, so we had a bunch of wheels and things that could be axles and different ways to attach them, but we didn't have any directions. So the first task being the rover, it was a really challenging thing. So the social emotional piece coming back in, I don't want to be wrong. I'm frustrated. I'm not used to having to regulate my emotions in front of my friends because I could just mute myself or go get a drink of water or, do whatever to get away from the computer. So in the beginning, I had students get so frustrated, the filter, I can't filter. I can't do any more of this today. And that's okay. And by the end of it, that's the one that's going to help everybody else. And then they see that there's not just one way to put the wheels on. I can't overstate what a goal this was. Like, the wheels are tough, and you want them to move smoothly. And what if I use gears and that kind of thing? They figured it out along the way, and they didn't feel less than because they did a different way or they were late to the game. That was what you saw in the video. They throw their hands up in the air and they're like, oh my gosh, I got it. Now come see my wheels. Let me show you how I did it. So, that's the stuff that's real and builds your confidence. And then maybe they'll be more willing to be wrong and share a different point of view that maybe isn't going to be loved by everyone in the classroom in a different content area.
And I think what you just said is so amazing because they shared their thinking. How often do we get students to really share their thinking and get inside and understand how they're approaching those things, and seeing how they did that in the classroom is so powerful.
They call it play in the session, but when we look at it, really it's a project-based experience where students are actually beginning to explore and build upon the engineering design process. So, we talked for a moment about how in STEM fields, there's no right or wrong answer, and essentially the key skill that a kid needs to walk away with other than, academic rigor is really the ability to work as a team and solve a problem. And so this is beginning to introduce to students sort of the strategic and methodical way that you would approach sort of a problem with some requirements, but not necessarily a strong, a strong, clear to parent answer. So from our standpoint, we were very excited about the approach that was taken.
It's real world. It's truly, we were talking about future-proofing our students a little bit yesterday. It's truly real world. They're experiencing that. They're understanding how that works. And regardless of what happens next with pandemics or out-of-school environments or what jobs there are in the future, it's truly preparing them for that future because it is having them work in the same way they might work in industry today.
Yep, that's all well said, and certainly I agree. We heard a few moments ago from Joanna about some of the things she did to start her process, and I'd like you to think for a minute while I go to Rob on this, if you have other things to add to that might be valuable for people who are trying to get started. But Rob, from your perspective, if you're in charge of a classroom, if you're a teacher, an educator, maybe an involved parent, somebody who's in and around the process, what would you say to them on how to start this? What are some things they should be thinking about or doing, or questions they should be asking to start this ball rolling?
Yeah. So I think opportunities like this, we sort of have multiple goals. And so So whether you're a parent or a teacher or out of school time programs, sort of there's different approaches that you could take to sort of align with your goals. So there's an opportunity in the program where we really think about introducing students to STEM careers. Just what are STEM careers? What are jobs in STEM? What does that actually look like? What do the people who do these jobs look like? Where did they come from? What's their background? What's their education? And so that's a potential tack to take. Another approach is sort of thinking about this real world mission context, where if we're thinking about the entry idea of how we actually create something to operate successfully on the surface of Mars, or how we think about fitting all of the computers, the people, the navigation equipment in a capsule that has a really tight requirement, and weight limitations, and so you can take it from the mission approach, but you could also take it from the team approach, where thinking about just getting students from different perspectives together and having them discuss an issue or brainstorm and define solutions. I mean, there's something that's often so interesting about these projects when we look at them is just the incredible creativity that you see in students and how they sort of barter and negotiate to get the final idea once they're comfortable with the teamwork skill set. So lots of different ways to take these opportunities, and I think that you guys developed them in a way that was sort of inherently flexible, knowing that not everybody quite has the same need and every community sort of has a different interest.
Thank you. Just a reminder, we're about halfway through, so if you do have questions that you want to submit through the app, please do that. And remember to tag us on Twitter if you have thoughts or comments that you'd like us to see either while we're here or immediately after. But back to you, Joanna. Other thoughts about how teachers or other people in the process can start bringing the play and the joy in learning into their classrooms?
Well, I would say start with where you feel comfortable. You can start in any content area. There's so many ideas out there. I don't know. I'll like tweak some ideas, I guess, or change them, but I'm not really an idea creator. I find them places. And then if they work for me, I like to share that they worked for me with my colleagues. And so keeping it as simple as if you feel comfortable with directed drawing, right? Let's not forget that art is STEM. My students are wrapping up a research project about how humans are impacting animals around the world, climate change, and so on. And I'm using Art Hub right now. An axolotl. Do you know what an axolotl is? Yeah. Okay, well, look it up. They only live in one lake in Mexico. Anyway, well, on Art Hub, this student went on there. He has a directed drawing what an axolotl looks like, and it has these feathery like gills around the outside of its face. And just looking at a screen, pausing it, stopping it, proportion, she's never going to forget that axolotl has these, feathery gills around its face. Art is STEAM. Start with something that's like short. All over the internet are simple, building a bridge to support a weight. You don't have to get too crazy. Penny boats, I love penny boats. Start with something that you feel comfortable with in any content area. And then just don't worry about, when I had my mom over, my mom's 78 and she's great. She helped me sort the Legos because they were a mess, okay? I had to sort like the flats and the bricks and everything. And she was very into it and I was very thankful. And she's like, wow, you're gonna have to tell them how to do this. I was like, I'm not, because I don't know how. So I'm gonna tell them I don't know how. And they created things that I would never have thought of. So really give them the materials, give them a task, and stand back and watch what happens. I just did an STEAM club after school, talking about St. Patrick and the snakes, leaving Ireland, and they had to create a catcher, which, by the way, they're learning surface area and all those kinds of things along the way, and we named it later. But they had all different attack modes, right? Like some of them made chopsticks out of straws and rubber bands, and other people made huge paddles. And I couldn't even think of really one way how I was going to connect it. So just be brave and give up a little bit of your power, because when you give them a challenge, they can't wait to show you and to show their friends. And they want me to record it so that we can watch it in slow motion. So just you buy in, and they're going to buy in, and they're going to amaze you. So it doesn't have to be a big deal. It doesn't. It can be 10 minutes. A little Googling.
If you had Oxalotto on your South by Southwest bingo card, you're a winner. Please see the staff at the back of the room. Thank you. That was amazing. As somebody who talks to a lot of people in this area and writes about it occasionally, when I hear the three of you talk about what's happening, I hear things like iteration, persistence, collaboration, failure, comfort with failure. And I think these are generally fall into the bucket that that I'm trying to get more people to call durable skills. They have a lot of soft skills. People are moving away from that terminology, but lifelong learning, things that you acquire and can be valuable to you throughout your career. But we also have real sort of obligations in a classroom to teach discrete skills that we all just, let's admit it, there are going to be tests on that stuff. So starting with you, Rob, how do you recommend, or how do you see the balance between the joy of play, the iteration, the durable skills, and the stuff that we expect the students to actually know when we ask them?
Yeah, so I think a theme that's come up in this panel is just high levels of student engagement on activities of this nature, whether it's this particular opportunity or whether it's others who have opportunities of a similar design, and so the hope is with that high engagement, the other pieces will fall into place.
Yeah, and I think I would add to that the hands-on piece. I mean, the research shows clearly that when students are hands-on, it builds their confidence. It builds their confidence in learning what they're learning in that moment, but also their confidence to learn in general, and also leads to being more resilient learners, so that they'll kind of move past that failure and keep trying. So I think bringing in that student engagement, bringing that hands-on piece allows them to work with that information in a way that they might not otherwise get to. And so, when we talk about playful learning, again, that's about being hands-on. When we think about being joyful, it's about how do we just let kids be curious and kind of get hands-on and tinker with all of those ideas. And I think that leads to a lot of what you're speaking to as well.
So another thing that's been working for me lately too is listening to what they are interested in. I have a student, no, I have to stand up. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to stand up. I have a student, okay, so Nike Airs, right? Air Force. Is anybody students all into the force? Okay, this is how he walks. I love him. He won't bend his feet. You know why, right? You don't want to crease your forces. And then when we come in from recess, because elementary school, we have a restroom break, and he's cleaning his forces. So I just started to figure out, what can I do to bring this in? So as a review for the testing, I found something, and then I have since enriched it to reach more of my standards. And they're going to design their own forces. They're going to design an advertising thing. Now, I know, I hear it too, and I'm like, I can't do that for a week. It doesn't need to be a week. You could do it with partners. They're going to even go on the Nike Air website, because you can create your account and do that. And then they're going to do the math and discuss it with partners and sell them on their marketing idea, right? I mentioned it kind of in passing, and now it's, when are we going to do that? When are we going to do that? I'm like, we have to get through percents and fractions first, fractions of percent and decimals, and then we're totally doing Air Force ones. So, listen to what they have to say and make something up that goes with it. It's the same standards, but they're practicing for a test and they don't even really know it, and it's, they kind of do, but they're designing shoes.
Let them be curious about it, right? Bring that curiosity out.
Yeah, that's fantastic. We are starting to get some questions come in, and we'll get to those in just one second. I want to do two questions from me first before we get to those. Here, briefly from each of you, just a question, thinking into the future a little bit. What sort of evolutions or changes do you see on the horizon for STEAM learning? What do you see coming, or what would you like to see coming in the future in that category? I'll start with you, Dr. Cheney.
Everybody's looking my way. I think that, again, this, just because of where we are today, of everything that's happened, we're on this precipice of what's next. And, for me, I just think about how we can break down those barriers. STEAM belongs everywhere. It belongs in the school day, out of the school day, at home. How do we make sure that learning's happening no matter where those students are, and that it is meaningful and keeps them wanting to learn more? So just how do we get that lifelong learning and that love of learning back in our students, and think about all the ways that we can support them? And I think that could really drive us further faster into the future.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah. So I think as a field, it's continuing to think about how and where the disciplines, including art and design, all intersect, and how we build off those intersections and create meaningful experiences for students that are sort of real life project based. And there are lots of great examples of people who are doing this work now. Probably people in this room, I'm sure. And so for us, it's I think it's interesting to continue down that path of thinking.
Okay, so as a teacher and a mom, I have a college sophomore and a senior in high school. And they want to do things, my kids included and everybody else, that they know someone that's done it. My daughter wants to be an actuary because she has a relative that is one and she loves math. My other daughter wants to be an ophthalmologist because she goes there every year since she was 8, and she doesn't want to sit at a computer. But they want to look at the degree list or pick from a list of known professions, right? You want to come out of college and be like, I'm that now, which I would like to create just an interest. Seek what you're interested in and turn that into something. And you don't have to graduate with a name, right? But with that comes, with Build to Launch, all of the missions had STEM professionals. My students saw women, men, all different backgrounds, all different kinds of engineers. I didn't know what an engineer was when I was 6 years old. I didn't. So let's show them what they are and add to the list to pick from, So that's really important. One of the things I'd like to do towards the end of the year is do another research project in teams about STEM careers. I bet you one of my girls wants to be a or maybe one of the boys, wants to be a cosmetic chemist. I bet she does, and she doesn't know. So let's show them what there is, so that they seek out these things and give them positive experiences so that when they go up to the higher levels of education, they're willing to fail. They're willing to try something they haven't tried because they have an end goal.
Yeah, and just one other note, so opportunities, I think, where we talk about STEM careers, so we think scientists, engineers, but just as critical, technicians and advanced manufacturing. And I mean, as an agency, we're not going anywhere unless we actually have folks who really are experts in their craft and helping us construct something. And then also thinking about sort of other appropriate places where sort of formal and the informal worlds come together and we connect around sort of shared goals. I think more of that work is critical.
Thank you. I'm going to skip the last question I had because I'm looking at some of the questions that have come in and frankly they're better. So we're gonna start with this one from it's a little small from Ming, I think. Thank you for that one. The question is, you mentioned the importance of fail fast. What does that look like in your work, and how is that built into the classroom culture? Because it has classroom culture, and you're closest to me, Joanna.
Oh boy, okay. So fail fast in class? Well, okay, so planning is important, right? But they don't want to plan, they want to touch and try, and that's okay. One of the missions was to design what they call a bullseye vehicle, so something that could deliver a product to a designated area. So we used a wall ball, because those are plentiful, and a lot of them built a car with many, many wheels, or 2, depending. And then it had a lot of them had something to direct the ball. Okay, we did not have robotics. We weren't programming or anything. So I had all the materials out for them. This is where you're going to start. This is where it's going to end up. Here's the wall ball. One team just totally went for it. We're going to test. We're ready to test. And the ball didn't fit in their designated spot. So rather than, they just were like, oh, we should have done that. And so then they saw the importance without me nagging them. They figured it out themselves, a natural consequence, right? Take a few minutes and plan it and sketch it. And 2 wheels didn't work out. Oh, well, we thought it would balance on the ball. So, giving them an opportunity to, don't correct. Let them fail so that they see the value in the failure and learn from the experience, and then they can go back. And the next time you give them any sort of challenge, they might slow down a little bit, but sometimes they just need to touch it and figure it out anyway. And all of that is part of the process with anything.
Yeah,
Dr. Jenny.
I like to talk a lot about failure, so happy to talk about that afterwards even more. But I think that we often attach failure in school, that's a bad thing and you don't want to fail. But in fact, what we're doing is a disservice to the students to understand the importance of iteration. We can learn from failure, and we have to think about the ways that we help students fail fast so that they can move on and keep learning, but also have meaning in that failure. How do we talk about that failure? How do we give that feedback in a way that they understand how to use it? I mean, anybody in here that says that they don't fail in their job and get that feedback and learn how to move forward is lying, I guarantee it. Because we do that as adults. We know that we need to get feedback from others. We need to iterate on what we're doing, and we need to teach our students how to do that as well. So when you think about failure, think about how to make it an iteration. How do I try something and take that information in, the data, the feedback, whatever, and use it to make it even better. And we do this all the time. We do it in our writing. We revise our writing, and we do that. We do it in science. We can do it in math. There's so many places that it happens naturally in education, but we don't think about it that way, and we don't help our students think about it that way and understand that all they're doing is iterating and learning. It's not that failure's a bad thing.
And share your failure. Share it, right? So I was trying to figure out a way for them to reflect on it. Sometimes they would build for 2 days and test, and then it kind of is a circus, but it's an on-task circus. Don't misunderstand. So I was like, okay, you're done. You found success. I decided to have them do something called a lookbook. So I would take a picture or a video of their product, whatever it might be, and then I would put some things they had to have on their lookbook slide. So the goal of the Bullseye vehicle was to guide the product to the launch pad, and what did you stumble upon on the way? What did you have to change? And then I would partner the teams up. And this was all going on at once, right? While other teams are still figuring things out. Give me some keepers and some fixers. What did you like about their idea? What would you like to keep to maybe try something else or try on your next product? But share your failure so other people can benefit from it. And all along the way, they're talking about something that they spent a lot of time on and they're very proud of, and they weren't ashamed to say, oh, we didn't use a wall ball, so we had to do it again. And then it was too low and it wouldn't move and it caught the wheels and, all of these things, and they shared it with their friends. So collaboration and confidence and understanding that that's just part of life. All of us fail.
Thank you. I'm not going to be the person who asks the NASA guy about failure. I'm just not going to do that. We had a question here also, and thank you for everybody who's submitting questions. These are great. From Amanda, asks about transferring these ideas and activities of joyful learning and purposeful play into a virtual or online environment. Is it possible? What do you think? Any suggestions or thoughts? Dr. Jenny?
I think absolutely right. I mean, again, this idea of purposeful play, it's about how do we help students investigate? How do we get curious? How do we try ideas? And I think you can do that in any environment. And just like we were saying with the Build to Launch program, even though we developed it as Lego Education with NASA, the idea was you could use any materials. So students have materials at home. They may not be the exact materials you want, and that's okay. In fact, sometimes it's better because then you can really let them get creative and see what they create. So whatever materials you have, whatever materials students have at home, whatever kind of online environment where you can draw and share ideas and talk it through, that's really what it's about to get playful, is to make sure that it's meaningful and engaging and iterative and socially interactive and hopefully joyful is what we really want to come from that. So don't overthink it. Don't try to turn it into something monumental to do. I mean, you're probably doing these things often anyway, and just think about how then in a virtual environment is the best way to engage students. It can be fun things like putting a GIF in the chat pod, and just letting them get playful with the way they represent and share their thinking. And it can be really simple things. Again, it's just about trying it and bringing them into those environments in the way that suits that environment best.
In the fall, I had students that were quarantined when we were doing this. I mean, and I sent things home with them if their adult was able to come over and get it, or they just used what was at home. And honestly, I had 2 students quarantined when Dr. Jenny came with the Today Show to my classroom, and he was so upset. And I'm like, well, this is 2021, and this is what classrooms look like. And he hung with us all day, and he tested in his dining room, and kids were carrying him around, and he's on the floor in the hallway, and it just was what it was that day.
And it was a still great experience.
Rob, any thoughts about transferring this into a virtual environment?
I would say one thing that is often requested of us and of other folks in industry in these situations is to help find like a local mentor or someone in the community who's who has a STEM background, and they can often be useful in helping kids think through the problem solving or vetting an idea. So that's a frequent request for us and others.
And I'm going to do something I promised all 3 of you I wasn't going to do, and that's ask you to shorten your answers just a little bit, because I want to save time at the end to get final thoughts in, and I want to get a few more questions from the audience and participants here. A few thoughts from all 3 of you, if you don't mind. We'll start on Dr. Jenny's end about how the purposeful play and the things we've been talking about works at higher levels of education, high school, maybe even into post-secondary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was a high school teacher and taught at the college level as well, and absolutely tried to bring this in. And I often brought it in the form of project-based learning and different problem-based scenarios that we would give our students. And I think that's just it. Again, it's about being purposeful and thinking about the ways that the learning can bring that curiosity out of your students, what interests them, and try to draw that in. I mean, we know that we can start to lose our high schoolers. So we really want to make sure that we grab them with what gets their attention and gets them excited. And those are the ways that you can really make it playful in the way that they get to represent themselves and they get to share that thinking. And it can be using playful materials like Play-Doh. When I would bring out the Play-Doh and crayons, my ninth graders would go crazy. That was the best day because they still enjoy using those types of materials that feel fun and playful, and it makes it feel a little different, especially for our high schoolers that get really structured. And I would work with my English teacher, and we would bring in some of the science materials into her English class often. I taught science, just because, again, it would change it up and make it feel more fun and playful in her classroom in a way that still drew the learning out and was still really purposeful to what she wanted to accomplish, but did just kind of make it a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more playful. So just think about those ways that you can get hands-on, draw out those interests and curiosities of your students, and let them kind of represent their ideas in their own way. And that's it, you're being playful.
Rob, high school, college?
Yeah, for us at the high school and college level, something that we do a lot of is we offer, and so a little more structure here, but we offer these project-based student challenges. So we have something called Artemis Student Challenges, where it could be something from a rocketry competition to helping think through what VR displays of future spacesuits might look like. You can check out our website, stem.nasa.gov, and learn more about those experiences. So we take the idea of working as a team, we take the idea of some loose requirements, and the idea of sort of working over time to submit a solution and sort of apply a bit more complexity to the task and structure to the opportunity.
Joanna?
Okay, so I can't really speak to high school, but I can tell you, I'm sure physics, right, in high school, I taught force and motion using Built to Launch. So if you read in a book what force is and friction, and then you give them a verbal example, it's 100 times more effective when you give them a task and then they go, I don't know why my wheels aren't moving right. I don't know why Bob's is faster than mine. Oh, they end up figuring it out, and then we name it. And I do see, sorry, I'm cheating. I see a question over here about formula. So I might name it first. We're going to do this, and then I want you to show me where you found the friction. I might name it another time after they figure out that's what it is. What's thrust? Where's the force coming from? So I could see in middle and high school that all of this is really applicable to, especially the higher level sciences that scare the kids. They scare them. They want to hear that it's fun. Yeah.
I think they do. Another quick question from our audience. We'll go back the other way, starting with you, Joanna. I'm sure this is true, but I just would like to hear from you. Have you noticed how bringing these sorts of lessons into a classroom changes the adults, either the teachers or the parents or other non-learners in that environment?
Yes. So I had teachers would be in their prep and knock on the door. Can I come in? Can I see? I can never do this. My kids can't handle this. My kids are the same as everybody else's kids. And there's a time to sit and listen and take notes. I'm teaching U.S. government also. I'm doing all of those things, but we have lunch, and then we have social studies and science, a half hour of each, right? Or alternate your days, whatever you need to do to make it work. And they come back from lunch and they're a little tired, like we are. Instead, I've got them saying, oh, but I didn't get to finish yesterday. I need to test. I didn't get that picture. Can you share it with me so I can put it in my lookbook? Can you send that video to my mom? Remind, love it, right? Back and forth with the parents. When I was new, that made me nervous. And now I have people sharing videos and talking to me about what their student told them at dinner, about what we're doing. So they're so excited that then they go home and they share what they learned. So there are times where they have to sit and listen, but I'm just trying to find the times that I can bring the purposeful play with a goal in mind. And that just that excites them so much they want to share it with everybody. So yes, relationship with parents, administration, other teachers. And so that's what I would say too. You can do it. Let them show you, let go a little bit and listen to their conversations.
Rob, seen this change adults?
Yeah, well, we've seen, so in some of these districts and schools, whether this or other projects, we definitely see lots of engagement from like school board and leadership, and taking on sort of a thoughtful initiative. We also often see, as people start to think about implementing these experiences, sort of a desire to make sure that they have professional development or support if they haven't done a lot of inquiry, or the thoughtful questions to ask the students as they work through the engineering design process. But I think all that is really positive, healthy stuff that there are lots of people available to support with.
Yeah,
Dr. Jenny.
absolutely. And I think that we have the opportunity to do a lot of professional development with teachers and with administrators. And it's just incredible to see how they lean in and how excited they get about the learning. And so I encourage everyone, the place to start is for you all to get playful. Get playful with your other teachers, with the administrators. Let that experience happen so that you're comfortable and confident and ready to bring it in the classroom. And that's one of the best places to start. But it absolutely changes the adults. It breaks down those barriers of, I can't do this, or what happens when I can't answer the question, or what happens when the students, don't quite get where I want them to. I mean, you kind of have to have those experiences a little bit yourself and understand what it looks like and feels like, so that you know what it's going to look like and feel like in your classroom. So I think it absolutely changes the adults. And then when they see the power of what can happen with the students, it just makes you want more. It makes the teacher down the hallway want to do it. It makes the administrators want to have everyone in the school doing it. So it's really powerful to just turn it loose and see what happens.
That's great. Fantastic. Thank you for that. And I think we can squeeze this in quickly. A question from Victoria about the nexus between public health careers and what we're talking about in STEM. Dr. Jenny, you want to give us a few thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, we use the NASA example and engineers and so many other folks at NASA that were involved. But I mean, the point is you could do this with any career. It's just really thinking about those areas that you want to expose students to, and then bring in, those opportunities to get explorative. I mean, obviously some of these health areas, there's certainly health curricular at the school that you could take this into and think about how it fits, and different ways to get hands-on and exposed to the problems. And I think that's was really powerful about Build to Launch. We were exposing to these careers, but also just thinking about what were the problems that they were trying to solve, what is it that we need to think about before Artemis 1 launches. And so being able to identify those, it makes it real world, it makes it meaningful to students, and especially as students get older, they don't just want the story about what some other kids are doing. Like, they really want to think about real problems in this world that they can solve. And if you can connect it into that, you really can connect it to any of these other STEM career areas.
Thank you, Rob.
Yeah, definitely data science. We do significant biomedical work, looking at effects of space and health on astronauts, and thinking about Mars missions and such. So for us, yeah.
Yeah, I would just say, I don't even know if I'm answering that question anymore, honestly, Derek, but but so when we're teaching math, and sometimes it's in isolation because, I'm teaching the distributed property and they're like, what the heck, why do I need to know this? So if we can figure out why they need to know and what STEM career that is relevant for, it engages them more. So data science, absolutely. You don't have to wait until you get to your statistics unit. You can make it happen anytime. But I think whatever you're teaching in math and science, figure out how to tie it to the real world, because that's really where the power is. That's when they want to engage.
Dr. Jenny, are there any assumptions when people think about STEAM or STEM learning that we need to let go of?
Yeah. Oh, that's a loaded question. I think just, don't try to find the right way to do it. Don't try to find the definition of what it has to look like. Think about what's appropriate for your students, what's appropriate for your learning environments, the goals and the outcomes that you need to meet for your students. And then think about how to be playful with it, but think about how to integrate that learning, how to bring it together and make it real world. And really you'll be successful. So I would just say, don't put those barriers up. Don't let somebody else define it for you so heavily that you feel like you can't try something and move forward with it. Just, give it that shot, go after it, think about what STEAM can look like in your classrooms, and think about how it belongs in your classrooms regardless of what you're teaching. Because I do think those skills are so transferable. 80% of jobs doesn't have to be a STEM job, right? Use those same skills. So just think about those skills and that knowledge and that way that they use that, and bring that into your classroom in the most appropriate way you can.
Thank you very much. And quickly, Rob, as you think about the stuff that's being brought into the classroom, is there anything that is on your list for something that's absolutely necessary?
Wow. So we really like the real world context. We really like the hands-on project-based experience. And frankly, we really love getting feedback from students, educators, our end users to see if what we're doing hits the mark. And so really keeping a dialogue open is actually absolutely critical for us to find success.
I'm sorry I don't have a hidden pun for you, but we've only got a few minutes left anyway, and we're over that. So I'd like to give a few minutes to all three of you, final thoughts, key takeaways, something you think you should have mentioned that maybe you forgot in an earlier question, and we'll start on this side. Joanna, final thoughts?
Well, remember that this isn't done on the side of anything. So we're reaching a learning goal. So figure out something you need to teach anyway, right? And what you can do to reach it in a joyful way. So it's not just, I'm going to just do STEM on Friday. I mean, you can do that too. But if you could tie it into a standard, nobody can tell you that your play is not purposeful, right? And if it doesn't work out the first time, then you just tell the whole class, well, that didn't go how I thought it was going to go, and show them that you don't know everything. I learned so much doing Build to Launch. I learned something every day, and I always tell my class by 9 o'clock I did 3 things wrong, and but it's always aligned to a standard. So just give them some materials and give them a small challenge, and just let them go and see what they can do. And it takes time for most of their conversations to be on topic. But there are times you can hear a pin drop, a literal pin drop, because they're so into what they're doing. We're doing buddy builds, so using a kit, and they have to do their 2 parts separately and then make them fit together to reach a task. And they're sitting next to each other. And this is an after-school program that I'm doing right now, and other teachers are like, I don't know how you're staying after school and doing that, right? Then they come in the cafeteria, and they're not even really, and they don't really talk until they're testing because they're so minds on, and they're learning.
Rob, final thoughts?
Yeah. So we love opportunities that continue to break down silos between content domains. And I guess just from a NASA plug perspective, we have a couple opportunities coming up that should be like high public profile, potential teachable moments. So Artemis 1, I mentioned, launching in the next few months or the next month or two. We have continued incredible work going on the surface of Mars and pictures and data coming back. We have the James Webb Space Telescope, which is the most powerful an incredible piece of machinery I think we've launched into orbit. It's going to have first images in the next few months. So
and it looks like a transformer.
Yeah, just lots of cool things if you're looking to kind of make a real world connection between the classroom and what you might hear in the news.
Dr. Jenny.
So I would say just don't be afraid to be a learner with your students. It seems like a really difficult task, but I promise you'll come out smiling on the other end of it. Take that on. Encourage your teachers, if you're an administrator, to be a learner with your students and get curious and get playful themselves. Again, if you experience as an adult, you're going to be more comfortable with it. And then seek out those great examples. I mean, we've got a great example sitting here that you can see. I'll plug our professional development platform. So Lego Education's professional development platform, also free. And what's there are great videos of what this looks like in the classroom. So again, just find those resources to see what it can look like, and just give it a start and give it a try. And don't forget, you're a learner with your students, and take that on and be comfortable and confident with it.
Thank you to all three of you again, and thank you to our audience for submitting great questions and for being here. I just want to give one more second. I know you mentioned the NASA website. Can you give that URL again?
Yeah, please check out stem.nasa.gov. One other just quick thing, we have a email list that you can sign up for, our NASA Express, and we send you weekly updates on new partnerships, products, opportunities, grants, things of that nature.
Dr. Jenny, do you have any web-based resources that you'd like to leave people with?
LegoEducation.com, so don't forget the education part. And again, all of our lessons, all of our resources are freely available because we just want to inspire you to bring that playful learning into your classrooms. And there you can get to that professional development platform, which is just another great resource for teachers.
And Joanna, I don't think you have any resources that are yours specifically, but maybe places you might direct
I have an
people to.
Instagram that I'm trying to get better at. And like I said, I'm not creating anything. I'm not selling anything. I'm just using things I find and showing how they worked for me. And 99 times out of 100, they are free. My Instagram is 6_rocks. 6 rocks.
Love it. Thank you again for being here. We're down to 15 seconds to go. And I want to just take a moment to give a round of applause to our panelists and thank them for their insights and their comments.